Thank you for purchasing your Kenai Pro or your Kenai Pro Thermal. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up your Kenai Pro, put it together, and get you ready for the ice season. We've got the box opened up. As you can see, we have all of our parts. First thing is we've got our hoop holes. You should have 4 hoop holes with your Kenai Pro or your Kenai Pro Thermal. We're going to slide those out. Set these off to the side here. Next in the box is going to be our tent. So remember this, okay, when you go to do your hammock is included inside the tent. You will see this yellow or this orange sticker that tells you the accessory holder is in with the tent. It's going to be right behind the piece of paper stating which tent this is. So this is that gray piece of material right here. This is your hammock. So, and then your tent itself. Next, got our rear spreader pole. Okay. Then we have our seat rails. Should have 2 of those. Okay. Here is our inner pack. This is going to have all of our mounting pieces, all of our nuts and our bolts and everything we need to assemble the fish house. Okay. You're going to have 2 seat sliders. Your U-channel. Your rope. And last but not least, your seat. So that's the parts and pieces that we have for this fish house. Let's dig into it and get it put together. So here we got our inner pack. It's pretty small. Not a whole lot to this house, which makes it really nice. So it'll be very easy to put together for you. So what we're doing here is we're just gonna open it up. Okay, so inside of this, you're gonna have your bag of hardware. Okay, this is gonna have all your nuts and bolts inside of it. You're gonna want a Phillips screwdriver for this, a number 2. So just remember that in a 7/16" wrench. Okay, we're gonna have our plastic washers. Our other 2 plastic washers, which these are the spacers. You're gonna have 2 L mounting brackets. These are for the poles. Okay. You're gonna have your tube caps. You're gonna have your pole caps. And then you're gonna have your 2 hoop hole mounting plates. That's all that's in this. So let's dig in and let's get it put together. All right, so we're ready to put the poles together, the hoop pole system. So what we're gonna want for this job is we're gonna want one of our pole plates. Okay. So we'll pull that out of here. I'm taking both out. That. And then in our hardware kit, we're gonna want a few items. So we'll pull it all out of here. First thing you're definitely gonna want is your 101-082s. That's gonna be your lock nuts. Okay. You are going to want just 2 of these, which are your 101-486s, okay? These are gonna be the bolt that's actually gonna mount the plate and into the L bracket. So you're just gonna need 2, so you're gonna need 1 for each one of them. So we'll pull those out there. And then last but not least, you're gonna want your 101-080s, okay? You're gonna want all of them for this. So with that being said, I've got everything I need to do this task, so let's dig into it. Pretty simple process on how to do this. There's not much involved with it. You just want to make sure you get the right bolts in the right place. So we've got our 2 plates here. Now, a little disclaimer on this so you know is you've got an end, a side that has the part number imprinted into it, and then you also have a side that does not. That's how we want this to actually line up when it's all said and done. So you're gonna have one side of your pole system with the numbers facing out, okay? And then you're gonna have another side that's gonna have those part numbers facing in. And in the end of it, it's gonna look something like this when it's said and done. Okay, so you want both of these curved ends to be facing up. This is gonna be the front of your fish house, okay? So just keep that in mind as we're going and doing this. So first thing I'm gonna start off with is I'll start off with the number side. It doesn't matter which way you start, you just wanna make sure that you do it that way. So we'll start off with that side. We're gonna get our caps, okay? So you should have plenty for all of them. And what we're gonna simply do is we're gonna place them in. You wanna make sure that the flat side is facing down. This is where it's gonna connect onto here, okay? So that's how we're gonna do it. So what I'll basically do here is I'm just gonna slide them in, okay? And if you've got a hammer, it makes it a lot easier to do. So what you'll wanna do is you'll wanna get these all placed in. That's what I like to do. I like to get them in place. They go in a little snug, which is just fine. That's what you want. Okay, so now that we've got those on there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hammer them down, get them in, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so we're ready to install our poles. We've got our caps on. Okay, you're gonna wanna watch how I do this very carefully because it's very simple to do, but we wanna make sure we put the poles or the bolts in the right place. You're also gonna wanna grab your plastic washers or your spacers, okay? There should be 4 in this bag. If you don't know the part number, it is a 101-839 or a 103-839. And pretty simple how this goes. I'm not gonna install the 4th pole right away. We're gonna save that till the end. Okay, so just tune in for that. So put the 4th pole off to the side and we're gonna start from the back and work our way up, okay? So what I'm gonna simply do is I'm gonna line that up. I'm gonna grab my smaller of the bolts. Okay, and I'm going to just insert that in there. I just like to get a little hand tight, so I got that pushed in. Then I'm gonna take a number 2 Phillips, and I am going to screw it in. Okay, so now you can see it's already started. This plate is threaded, so there's no worries. You don't need to try to jam it in there because it's gonna go in. So I just wanna get it snug. I don't wanna get it super tight because when you start bending this pole in, this is gonna stick out too far and it's gonna hit that mounting bracket. So just get them hand tight, okay? So we've got that one done. Now we're gonna move on to the next one. As you can see here, there's 2 holes instead of 1. That's where these washers come in. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna get rid of the space in between there. So what I'm gonna do is these washers are gonna go on this top hole. So I will just set those in place like so. Just like that, and then we're gonna take another one of our smaller bolts. We're gonna add that through like that. Okay, find the hole, and I will get this one hand tight to start. And then what I can do is tighten this down. Make sure you do this one before you go to the bottom one. It just makes it a whole lot easier. So I'm just gonna get that kind of snug, just like so, not much. Now we can take that longer bolt and we can add that into this bottom bracket piece. Okay. So it's tightening itself in there right now, and you may need to move it around a little bit to get it where it needs to go. I can tell right there that it's not exactly lined up. So you're just gonna kind of move it around until you find the spot. Once you find the spot right there, you're gonna feel it all go into place. And so we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna screw this all the way down, but we're not going to get it super tight. We're just gonna get it snug. So, all right, that's snugged in there, it's not tight. Now we can move on to the final one. And we're gonna add that one right there. Same process again, the smaller bolt. Add that in there. We're gonna find the threaded hole. There it is. Same process. Let's get it snug, like so. All right, now we've got that side done. We're gonna flip it over, and like I said, remember, as you can see, the stamped side is out right now. Now on the next side, we want the non-stamped side to be on the outside of the house. right, so now that we've got this all finished, we're just gonna look over our work really quick. And as you can see here, I have one plate with the stamped part number on the inside, and I have one plate without the stamped number on the inside, okay? And this is gonna be polar opposite on the outside of it. So we wanna make sure of that, and then like I said, you also wanna make sure you have your longer bolts on the bottom. So you should have in total 4 shorter bolts when you add these two, and then you'll have 1 longer bolt. This is the bolt that's gonna go through that mounting plate as well, so make sure on that. With that being said, we've got that done, so now I'm gonna take my 101-082 lock nuts, okay? And we are going to just put them on. So it's pretty easy. Just gonna slide them on. You will not put one on that one, so don't worry about that. You should just need 3 for right now. All right, so next, we're gonna install the seat, okay? So what we're gonna want is we're gonna want our 2 seat rails. They're gonna be a 104, 146, okay? That's gonna be these. And then also, you're gonna want that hammock that we were talking about. So that's gonna be within the bag, so just take her apart and then pull that out. So that's gonna be placed under the seat, okay? We will save this for when we install the seat onto the tub, okay? Next thing we're gonna want is our seat sliders, okay? We are gonna want our bolts here. They're a 101-463, okay? And how you can identify these from the rest is they are different. So they are a flat side Phillips, okay? Versus the rounded end, okay? So these are the only bolts that are gonna be this way in the entire house. These are what you're gonna want for your seat, okay? And then we're gonna wanna grab our lock washer or lock nuts, okay? And our washers. Now next, what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna install these seats, or the sliders. So what I'll do is I wanna flip this over and I'll lay it like this. You've got 8 holes total here, but all you need to worry about is these 4 outer holes, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna unslide these together, and we're gonna grab our screws. And what I like to do is I like to just set them in right away, okay? So I do this just to make it pretty easy. And all this is gonna do is slide on like that, okay? And then I will take my washer and 1 lock nut, tie them together with each other, and we will just kind of add them on. So a little trick to do that is pull it out as far as you can, keep it so it's still sitting there in place, and then just kind of maneuver it into it. So I'll do something like so, and then I'll just kind of hand tighten it down. That'll just keep it in place, so now I can work on the bottom one. So it'll be the same exact process, bolts through. This one sits out a little bit farther, so yeah, you're gonna wanna definitely bring it in. Okay, and then we're gonna repeat that process again. You wanna make sure when you're installing these that you have the flat side right here. This needs to be facing inward, okay? So when it's all said and done, it should look just like so. So that's a big thing you wanna make sure of. So next, all we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing here. Do like we did, just kind of shallow it out, and then hand tighten it in. Okay, so that one's in place. Now I'm gonna repeat the process on the same side. Now that we've got it all put together, we're just gonna tighten them down. So now that we've got those sliders put on the seat, it's time to put on the rails. So I'm just gonna pull these out of the package. Okay, do that. We're gonna grab our tube caps. Should have 4 of them. Okay, and now what we're gonna do, there's a couple ways you can do this. You can take a rubber mallet and add them on that way, or you can do it the way I do it. I just do it this way, it just makes it easier. I've got a hard surface here. You've got holes on the ends here, okay? You wanna make sure that this hole is going to line up with this hole when you put it in. So what I do is I lay it flat like so. I figure that out. Okay, so a little bit more right there. That looks pretty flat. And then I'll just take my weight and push down. So when I do that, that's gonna put it in. Now I'm gonna repeat the process on the other side and then also to the other pole, and we'll be ready to add it to the seat. So now that we've got our tubes or cap tubes in there, now all I'm gonna do is I just slide it in. Very simple. Slide in nice and easy there like so, and do the same thing for the next one. Slide it in like so. Now that we've got that done, let's get started on the base. So now that we've got the seat ready to go, we can install it onto the tub. Before you start your assembly process on the tub, if you have any type of accessories or a runner kit, make sure you do that first. When you're doing the runner kit first before you put everything on, it makes it a lot easier to get it done too. So, because you got to flip the tub over and around and do all that stuff. So make sure if you've got any accessories that you want to put on or runner kits, make sure that's installed first before proceeding with this process. Now that we're ready to rock and roll, we've got any accessories that we wanted on there, we can install the seats. So what you're gonna wanna look at with this house is your holes. So you've got a bunch of holes that wrap around here. This is the front of the house, okay? So this is not on a swivel, so you wanna make sure you install it correctly. So what I'm gonna do is I know that this is the front of my seat, this is the front of the house, so I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to rest it on top. Okay, we're not installed on holes or anything like that, but what I'm doing is I'm just getting it all put together so it's ready to go. So with that being said, I wanna now grab my hammock, okay? And we are going to grab the rest of our bolts, okay? So as you can see right there, the 101 486s, we're gonna want 4 of these. So we will grab 4, there's 3 and there's 4. Okay, so now that we've got 4, we're gonna want 4 washers. And 4 of our lock nuts. First thing we're gonna do, and what I like to do, is I like to start with the front, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in. Sometimes when you add that tube, that cap, it's not gonna get perfect and that's okay. So what I'll do is I'll take this bolt, and as I'm kind of maneuvering in, I'll find it and I'll just move over to get that centered. So now it just falls through freely, okay? So now that we've got that first one in, I wanna install this hammock. Okay, so I'm gonna slide it under. You've got 2 ends here. You do not want it to sit like so. You're gonna see the black strapped in, like this right here. You want this to rest underneath that seat. So, oops. So when it's all said and done, it should be laying like this, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add that on here. I'm just gonna lift this up. I'm gonna slide that under there, okay? I'll find the hole. We're gonna set it in the hole. I'll repeat that same process right here. Do the same, I'm making sure that black strap is facing underneath here because that's what it will be sliding on. Okay, we're gonna get in there. Cap tube could use a little adjustment, so we're moving it around, slides in. Same process, that's in. So now, before I move to the other side, I'm just going to hand tighten these. So I want a washer and a lock nut, okay? And all I'm going to do is go underneath. It's pretty simple. Just get her hand tight for the time being. And we'll do the same here. All right, now that we got that done, we can flip it over and do the same thing. So once we do that, the reason I like tightening that is this hammock is meant to be tight. It's not meant to be loose, okay? We get a lot of questions on that. Why is my hammock tight? And that's the reason, is it's supposed to be tight. You don't want it to be loose at all. So I want that so I can hold on to the thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna repeat that same process, and I'm going to add these. Okay, and then what you may need to do, now you're gonna wanna make sure you did it right. You can see that black strap's gonna run all the way along the bottom there. Now what you may need to do is you're gonna need to pull on it a little bit, okay? Because it's gonna be a little tight. So what I do is just take my hand, I pull on it, I get it under like so, and I can add that in. I do the same thing here. Once again, making sure the strap is where it needs to be. Go like so, put that in. We're gonna add our nuts and our washers. We're gonna tighten it down and we'll be ready for the next step. All right, so now that we got the seat installed, now what we have to do is put on our L brackets, our pole brackets. So these will be the mounting brackets for our hoop pole system that we put together earlier. We're gonna have 2 of those. Okay, so you're gonna want these. And then you're gonna also, now you're gonna wanna grab your 101 088s, okay? These are your smaller ones. Okay, so if we are putting together a Kenai Pro thermal, you are gonna have a corner console that comes with your fish house. Okay, so what you wanna do with this, to show how to install it, is you're gonna wanna pull it out. You're gonna see 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're gonna wanna install it like that. So what you want is to take the curve end like this, or you can match it up with both the clam sides. And you're gonna wanna set it down like that. Okay, so now that that's in place, now your mounting bracket is gonna go over the top, okay? And you wanna make sure that's facing outward, so the L is like you see it there, okay? That's gonna go right over the top, and then all we're gonna simply do is we are going to take our 2 bolts, we're gonna put those in, and then I will add those on top, so that'll sit on top. And then now what you would do at this point is now add your last one. So you'd have one that goes here, and then one that goes in here. And that's gonna be how you add your counter console. Very, very simple. So if you have a Kenai Pro thermal, make sure to do this step. All right, so if you do not have that corner console that comes with your fish house, it's very easy from here. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take your L bracket, you're gonna put your 2 bolts in there. Make sure that the flat side is facing outward, okay? So you want it to look just like so when it goes on, okay? You want it like that. You do not want it sitting like this. That's not gonna work out. So make sure that the flat side is facing out, okay? And then we're gonna put that in there. We're gonna take a nut and a washer, and we're gonna add that underneath. We'll just hand tighten that. We'll do that for this. And then once we're done here, we're gonna go and repeat that other side, and we'll be ready to put our pull system on. So now we're on to the final process. We've got everything put on. Now we just need to add our hoop poles that we put together earlier. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to take this and I'll kind of squeeze it in a little bit, and I'll put it in on the inside. And the reason why I'm doing that is it's making it just a lot easier. It's holding it in place. But like I had mentioned, we want those edged corners to be facing upward. That's gonna be the front of your fish house, okay? Otherwise, the way you can identify is by the pole that we have not put in yet. That's gotta face up. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my 2 black plastic spacers. Okay, I'm going to grab a lock nut and a washer. Okay, we're gonna add this onto that longer bolt. Okay, and that's gonna space this right here so our nuts do not touch that back plate. So then from there, what I like to do is I just kind of round it over the corner, set it in the first hole. Do not put it in the back hole. Make sure it goes into this first slot. Okay, and then we're just gonna hand tighten it. We're gonna repeat that same process on the other side. So what we're gonna do is we'll move over to here. We'll do the same thing. My nut. We'll add that in there. Add the washer and the lock nut. We've got that done, so now we're ready to tighten it down and put the tent on. All right, before we put the tent on, let's just install the rope real quick. You'll get a 9-foot rope with your Kenais. Okay, so real simple. You got 2 holes here. And all I'm gonna do is just wrap it around and tie a quick knot. Leave a little slack here. Leave a little extra rope. It's gonna make this a lot easier, okay? So we'll do that, we'll get her tight, and then what I'll do is I'll just kind of tighten that knot down a little more. So repeat this same exact process over here. Pretty simple. Just tie a quick knot, leave a little slack there, just like so. Okay, kind of tighten it down a little bit. And then we're good to go. You got your rope installed. So now we can move on to the tent. The first thing we want to do before we start working on getting the tent on is our U-channel. Okay, now, so for us here on the build line here at Clam Outdoors, what we use is what we call a hot box. And what that is I've got a heater in the back of this box right here. And inside, I have a lineup of U-channels. That's just a real quick way that we do things. But for those that don't have this type of a system set up, a bucket works great. Some type of a 5 or 6 gallon bucket. What you want to do is you want to get water that is just about boiling. You don't want it to be boiling. Think about it when you're making a mouth guard if you're fitting it. You want to have hot water so it loosens everything up and makes everything pliable so you can get the right feed into the mouth. So what we're going to do at this point, what we would do is we'd get some almost boiling water. You don't need it to be boiling. We're going to fill it up as high as we can. So I would say, you know, get it at least till it's 3/4 up on the bucket. You want to have as much water as you possibly can so you can put this in there. And what you'll simply do is, in a situation saying that this was still cold and stiff, what I would do is I would take it and I would wrap it up. So I want to get it as tight as I can. And the reason I want to get it as tight as I can is because I want it to go down as far as I can in the bucket. That's going to keep it warm. That's going to keep it ready to roll. So what we would do at that point is I would put it in there. Now at this point, everything is warming up. We can put this off to the side. You know, you want to let it sit for, 3 minutes. So if you're not too far into the tent at that point, maybe do it about halfway, put it in there. 3 to 5 minutes, I think, is plenty. You don't want the water to get cold. You want it to stay warm, because the warmer it is, the more pliable that U-channel is going to be. So at this point, we've got it in the bucket. Now we're ready to start getting the tent on. So now we are ready to put the tent on. So it's pretty simple. If you've got the Kenai Pro Thermal, it's just going to be a thermal tent. It's going to be no different how we do this. So what I like to do is I'm going to unfold it. Okay, pretty small. Now what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for the side that does not have the skirt. Okay, so if you look here, you see the seam. Okay, and then here is the skirt. Okay, this is going to identify that this is the front of the house. Now, what you want to look for is the spot that does not have the skirt. So if you look here, this does not have a skirt, okay? So I know that this is the back of the house. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unfold this thing, and I'm going to actually flip it inside out, okay? So now when we flip it inside out, we've got straps, okay? And we want to find the back of the house. Okay, so there we go. We got the back of the house. And the way you can identify the back of the house is if you look on the other ones, you've just got normal straps. There'll be 3 of those in a row, okay? On the rear of the house, you'll have the blue, you'll see your back window, but more importantly in the center, you will have 2 straps that are split. That's how you can identify the rear center of the fish house. So now that I've identified where the rear is, I'm gonna grab all this and we're gonna move back and start putting it on the poles. So when we get back here, it's pretty simple. I'm gonna lay this out just like so. And I'm just gonna start as we go. These are gonna dip over just a little bit. That's okay, that's the way they are. And all I'm gonna simply do is start attaching. So we're gonna do the one there in the center. This one right here. Okay, now we're gonna move down. And when you're doing these, you do not need to go tight on them. They don't need to get snug tight, okay? I like to do them very loose. I want to have at least be able to put a finger in there. I want it to move freely. That's the whole point of this. Okay, because you want this tent to slide and move and do what it needs to do. So now with that being said, we're just going to real quick bust through all the rest of these. And we'll get to that final part. We'll move back up. We'll move again to the next set. Start with our center. And then on to the next, just do a little bit. So now we're ready to put on that front porch hoop that we've been holding off on the side. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay this on top. Okay, so this is your front. The rear, you can see that as you've obviously got the zipper, but then you have that front sleeve. So that's why we did not put that hoop pole on, because we want to slide that through. So I've got my hoop pole right here. All we're gonna simply do is fit it in there and just slide it through. Very easy to do. Okay, and now we can lay it down in place of where it should be. Okay, so now what we're gonna do next real quick is we're just gonna add our 2 more bolts. Okay, so we're gonna take 2 of those shorter bolts again, and we're gonna add those through. We'll find where the hole is there. Okay, those hand tight. And then what I'm gonna do from there is tighten them in. Just get them snug. You don't wanna go too tight on them, but do that for both sides. And we're just gonna take our 2 lock nuts, tighten that in like that. Like that. All right, and we'll take a 7/16 inch wrench. We'll tighten those down and we'll be ready to flip the tent over. We've got our hoop pole installed, so now what we're gonna really quick do is we're just gonna finish adding our Velcro. So in the corner here, you're gonna have 2 just like this, and it'll go in place just like this. Once again, not snug. Keep them as loose as you can. Just like so. All right, and if you want to, you can install these right now, or you can install it later. So it's just another one, a part of it. You just go down a little bit. Add it right there. And from there, we're ready to flip the tent. So real quickly, what I'm gonna do before I do that, I'm gonna pull this back. I'm just gonna move these poles up a little bit, and it kind of just gets everything put in place. Okay, so now I've kind of got everything. There's a lot of room to move and do all that stuff. So now what I'm gonna pretty much do is I'm gonna take the front and just flip it over. Okay, you're gonna have to kind of work it a little bit. And there you go, our tent's on. So now I'm just gonna take some clamps, just kind of set them in here for the time being. That'll just hold the tent there in place. Then we can go around and do a few adjustments. Look at where we are in terms of the tent, what we need to tighten up. And as you can see, we definitely have some tightening to do. But we'll get this thing situated. You're gonna look, you're gonna see seams right here, okay? I wanna get these seams as perfectly as I can into the corners. So this one's over a little bit farther, you can see that. And it ain't gonna take much, just a little bit, just like that. And then thing is pretty much centered. So now that I've got that, I'm done with that part. I'm gonna go around this house real quick. I like to hit it, and what I'm doing is if any of the material rolled up while we were flipping it over, I can go through that and I can double check it and just make sure everything is where it should be. You know, with the pole, make sure everything's straight. Give her a couple love taps to make sure it's there. Okay. And everything looks pretty darn good, and I'll be pretty honest with you, I don't know how much I'm gonna have to do for tightening, but we'll show you how that's done. So this is pretty good where it sits. But if you were needing to tighten your house, like if you have it really, really loose, so for instance, I'll put a bunch of slack in right here quick. Okay, so we got some slack there, as you can see. All I'm gonna simply do is tighten it up a little bit. Okay, so this corner will sit like that. I do not want that pole to come off the ground. Okay, I just want to pull the slack out of it. So right there is pretty good. Then I'm going to clamp it down. There's no certain amount of material that you need to have in the back. You just tighten it down until that pole is still touching the ground, but the material itself is not loose and saggy. So I'll check this side real quick too. That side looks pretty good, so I'll just pull that material like so. I got the clamps in place. We'll just make one quick spin around, and then next what we'll do is we'll install the U-channel. So now that we have our U-channel all nice and warmed up and flexible, let's get to installing it. So just a little note here, what we like to do is we like to use staples to set the tent itself. And all this does is it just keeps it in place for us. We do a lot of houses in one day. So making this just makes it very convenient. You don't have to keep readjusting. If you do not have a stapler to be able to do this with, just take your clamps and just keep them in the corners. That's gonna keep that tent in place. And what we're gonna wanna do with our U-channel is we're gonna wanna find our center. Okay, so what I like to do is I'll match up the 2 cut ends. Find my center. So now I know right here is my center. I'll add that on, like so, and then I'll take one of my screws and I will install it on. Now do not go too tight, just enough, because this will pop through that U-channel. After that point, when you've got this done, when you get that first one in there, you could take those off and you won't need those anymore. The tent's gonna be in place, so it's not gonna move anywhere. But from here, I'm gonna take my thumb and I'm gonna insert it into the center of this U-channel, and that's gonna help me just open it up and run it along, especially when you get to the corners here. So, and then once it gets going, you can just kind of run with it, you know. So I'm gonna put this all the way on, like so. What I'm gonna do afterwards, I'm gonna take my hand and I'm just going through the inside of it. So if there's any curves, like right here in the corner, you can get that molding right where it needs to be, so there's no creases on the inside. So, repeat the same process real quick. There's no perfect way of where to start this or where you want. You can start wherever. I prefer the center, because like I said, if you don't have the option of a stapler to do this, that'll set it in place for you so you don't have to worry about that whole time. Now that I've got this all installed, the next thing I'm gonna want is I'm gonna wanna cut this U-channel. So what we state is 8 inches from the back of the mounting bracket. So your mounting bracket is going to be the L bracket we talked about. That's gonna be right here. So feel with your hand coming across until you feel that bump. That's the back side. So now I'm gonna take my pinky and point here. That's 8 inches for me. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. I know where it's at. And you don't need to be exactly 8 inches. As long as you're within that general area, you'll be just fine. So then we're just gonna cut that off there, and we'll add that on. That's gonna allow for this thing to flip and do what it's gotta do very easily. So I'm gonna do that with the other side, and then we'll get the screws on, we'll be ready to go fishing. So when we go to install the screws, we're gonna put them on. There's no certain way you need to do them. You don't need to use every single one in there. But what I like to do is I like to just space them apart. I try to give them as evenly spaced as I can. And just add them in. Like I said, do not tighten them down too hard. Once you see that U-channel start to dip in, then you're good to go. So, but on the corners, what I will do is 3 of them. So I will do one on the outside here. I will do one dead center. And I will do one right here on the outside. And that's just keeping those corners tight where they should be. And from here on, we're just gonna, I'll run it down real fast here. So, like I said, no rhyme or reason of where you gotta do them. Whatever your personal preference is, if you want a bunch, if you want a few, that's up to you. So, one more right here. And then finally, do one right here. Do not go all the way to the end. I always like to go like a 1/4 inch from there. Then it's not creasing that, and it's good to go. So I'm gonna finish up this other side, and after I'm done, we'll pack this thing up, and we'll be ready to hit the lake. So now that we've got the tent installed, we are ready to go fishing. But first things first, before you're done, you have Velcro that's inside of here. You're gonna wanna make sure you get that strapped to the side of the poles too. Keep that loose as well. You don't want it to go crazy. But when you're all done, the fold-up process is pretty darn simple. So what I actually like to do at this house, since it's small, is I'll come to the back of it, and I'll grab the sides and I'll kind of just squeeze them in. And so that's just gonna make it really nice and neat, I guess you could say. And that'll pull all that tent material to the inside, which is what we want. So nothing is dragging. Fold up this side. And that's all she wrote. So, hey, Kenai Pro Thermal, or your Kenai Pro is ready to rock and roll for the season. This is Mike Raetz with Clam Outdoors. We'll see you on the ice.